Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Shit Loretta Knows. Oh my God, Loretta doesn't actually, I was just going to say, it should be, welcome to another episode of Loretta Looks Like Shit. No, actually, now she looks a bit better now that she's fixed her hair. Today we're talking about fence sitting and why it's actually slowly killing you. Now, I didn't make that the title of this thing, but as of this live, but as I was typing it in, I was like, actually, while I was busy preparing this morning, I realized actually fence sitting is killing you slowly. So why do I say that? Well, because indecision means that our energy is torn. Our energy is scattered. Our energy is not integrated. And the less our energy is integrated, the less energy we have to actually run our lives effectively. So from an organ energetic point of view, the organ that is associated with knowing, the organ that says, when that organ energy is balanced, the organ that says, I know that this is the right decision for me. I know that this is true for me. I know that what I'm about to do is in my best interest right now is your gallbladder. And your gallbladder organ function energy, as I just said, says, I know. And so your gallbladder organ function energy helps you to make decisions. Now, part of the problem with decision making is that we want a guaranteed outcome. And the reason why we struggle to make decisions is because we're scared that whatever we choose is not going to be the right thing. But the truth is, my friends, that every decision results in an equal amount of support and challenge, an equal amount of pain and pleasure. It isn't skewed, which means that you can't actually make a bad decision. You can only make a decision that's going to have a set of consequences. It's going to have benefits and drawbacks if you make it this way, and it's going to have benefits and drawbacks if you make it that way. And those benefits and drawbacks are going to be equal. However, you may prefer a certain set. So when your gallbladder organ function energy is unwell, then it becomes very difficult for you to make a decision. You become indecisive. And conversely, the more fearful you are about making a decision, the more compromised your gallbladder organ function energy becomes. Now, why does this matter? Well, because your gallbladder is the repository of the bile that your liver makes, and your gallbladder concentrates the bile, and then that bile gets pumped into your small intestine, and it helps you to emulsify fat so that it can be digested. And also the bile serves as a carrier for toxins. So one of the ways in which your liver detoxifies is it binds the toxin once it's gone through the detoxification process to a bile salt. And the bile salt piggybacks the toxin into your intestine. And then when it gets into your large intestine, the bile salt splits off from the toxin, and the toxin is eliminated through your stool, and the bile salt is recycled. And this is a very, very vital process. And the emotion associated with the gallbladder is anger and frustration and resentment and guilt. And so when you are indecisive and you're unable to choose, then it actually results in more of those negative emotions. Now, the problem is that we are taught from a young age that negative emotion is not acceptable. And anger is a particular one that we tend to try and avoid. And so this accumulates in your physiology. And so what ends up happening is you end up losing your shit, for example, with someone that doesn't warrant it. Or something small sets you off because you keep it together and you keep it together. It's like a pressure cooker. It builds up. The pressure builds and builds and builds until eventually you go off top. And that damages not only your own health because it pushes up your blood pressure and it affects all sorts of things in your physiology, but it affects your relationships. It affects your peace. It affects the inspiration and the joy and fulfillment that you feel in your life. And it scatters your energy because you're constantly going, should I or shouldn't I? Should I or shouldn't I? Should I or shouldn't I? And what happens is it clouds your clarity. And even if you're not aware of it, this is happening and it's buzzing in the background. It's happening on an unconscious level. And it's compromising not only your physical health, but it's compromising your mental and your emotional and even your spiritual health. The other thing that happens when we're indecisive is we often have a head and heart conflict. So if you think of your head as the rational part of you, your mind, your egoic mind, and your heart as the more spirit-led part of you. So, you've got your head happening here and you've got your heart happening here, right? And so your head says, we need to do this. But your heart says, no, I don't want to do this. So, my head, I'll give you an example in my life. So when I started this community project, this Kula community clinic, it's a homeopathic community clinic, privately funded. If I had to collect some money, I've got enough to run it for 6 months. I'm waiting for the building to be finished. There's one delay after the next. But that there's a part of me in these last 2 or 3 years that I've been putting this together that says to myself, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you doing this? You are complicating your life. Why? Right? It's because it's a heart project. It's a project from my heart. So even though my head tells me it's going to take up my time, I'm not going to make any money out of it, I don't even know if I can do it, I don't actually know what the fuck I'm doing, I don't know if the community is really going to appreciate it or want it. The truth is, my heart is leading, and I've decided, well, that's what I'm going for. But what happens, so in this case, I've gone with the heart. But often, I'm like, my head says to me, this is a great idea, and my heart says, this is a terrible idea. Or my head says, this is a shit idea, and my heart's saying, Loretta, I'm longing for this. And so what happens with us is, one morning we wake up and we go, okay, I've made the decision, I'm going with the head. And then we backtrack and we go, oh, no, not too sure. I think I'm going to go with the heart. Or more often, we wake up and go, I'm going with my heart. And then the doubt starts creeping in. And then we think, oh, no, we're going with our head. And what ends up happening is the energy center that's caught between your head and your heart is this throat center. And your throat center governs your voice. It governs you speaking your truth. So what happens is your truth becomes clouded. It also governs your will. And so your will becomes weakened. And now you don't use your will to direct your focus. And you guys know, those of you who've been following me for a long time, your focus creates your reality. And so it becomes more and more difficult for you to shift your will from your egoic reality to your limitless spiritual reality. And it becomes more difficult for you to live from your spirit or from your heart. And so what ends up happening is you recreate the same patterns in your life over and over, and you wonder and you get frustrated because your life's not working the way you want it to. Your health is not the way you want it to. The health of your relationships are not the way you want it to be. Your relationship with money is not the way you want it to be. Your career maybe is not the way you want it to be. Or some parts of your life are exactly as you want them to be, but other parts are not. And so this head and heart tussle that saps our will, it basically beats us into taking no action. And so it's like a vicious cycle. The less we choose, the more we erode our will. The more we weaken our ability to choose, the less likely we are to choose. And what happens is this scatters our energy. And the more our energy is scattered, the more it depletes us. It depletes us physically. It depletes us mentally. It depletes us emotionally. And it robs our joy. So, this is why sitting on the fence and indecision is probably one of the worst things that you can do for your body. You can make a decision, and just because you make a decision doesn't mean it's all going to go smoothly. So my Kula project is a wonderful example. I mean, honestly, I started this project like 3.5 years ago, before COVID, a year and a half before COVID. This is my 1, 2, 3. This is my third village, all right? The project's cost more money than I thought it would. It's taken much longer than I thought it would. The politics in the villages are much more complicated than what I thought it would be. But it's finally coming together. And so it doesn't mean it's easy, and it doesn't mean that because it's hard, you've made the wrong decision. Guys, it's life. It's life, right? Shit happens. Good and bad come together as a package. Ease and difficulty come together as a package. So this is important because it erodes our certainty. It erodes our energy. And the more uncertain we are and the more we fence it, the less likely we are to take any kind of action. So the time is now. Why am I talking about this now? Well, because everywhere I look, so from the beginning of this year, or maybe actually from last year, we all heard about how we're entering the age of Aquarius, right? So some astrologers are saying, no, it's really only in 20 years' time, but it doesn't matter. For those of us who are 50 years old or maybe younger, the chances are this is going to happen in our lifetimes, okay? And so we're moving from this age of Capricorn, which was about materialism, and it was about control, and it was about power, and it was about exploitation and the survival of the fittest, and, climbing the ladder and, exploiting the earth's resources, and it's like survival of the fittest. That's very sort of Capricornian, very patriarchal, okay? And we're now moving into Aquarius, and Aquarius is more about the brotherhood of man, and it's about collaboration, and it's this beautiful golden age. I've actually seen quite a lot of memes about that just recently, right? And a lot of posts about that. And I'm not knocking that. But you know, when this all started becoming like a big thing, I can't remember if it was January last year or this year because time goes so fast. I was like, oh yeah, so what? Like, just because the planets have done something, suddenly all our shit's going to come together. And whether we have identified what's holding us back, whether we truly know how to step into our power, or all the places we've given our power away, they're just going to change. And the other thing is the patriarchy and the powers that be, they're all just going to roll over and play dead and go, oh, it's the age of Aquarius. Let's let the sacred feminine rise. Not a fuck, guys. That's not how it's going to happen. When anything has to be overcome, it doesn't just go quietly. It usually goes kicking and screaming and having a tantrum. So think about parts of yourself that you've tried to change, okay? Usually it's kicking and screaming and having a tantrum. That's why humans only change when we're desperate. So at the moment, we're going through this transition, and we may look, I hope we're going into this golden age. And my God, do I hope that it's just easy. And we're all just going to go through 11 portals, and the angels are going to come and bless us, and everything's going to be peachy. But you know what? I'm a realist. Probably actually a bit of a cynic. And one thing I know is that before a breakthrough, there's always a breakdown. And I believe that we're in that transition of the breakdown. And I don't know how long that's going to take, but shit's real out there. I know I say that often, okay? And some people might say, yes, but Loretta, that's because you're not looking for the love and the light. That's because you're such a cynic, okay? So here's the thing, guys. I tried being a love and lighter. I tried being a glass half fuller all the time. And you know what? It didn't serve me. All I ended up doing was actually hating myself when things got bad. And this is what I see with my clients and the people that I work with. And this is what I saw with my patients for 30 years, 25 years, 27 years, actually, almost 30 years, is that you've got to get real with what's going on. And shit is real out there. People are dying. People are struggling. Finances are hectic. There's wars happening. And we might go, yes, it's been like that since time immemorial. Well, okay, you know, if that's how you see it, that's fine. I'm seeing and feeling that the energy is really intense out there. And I'm not trying to scare you into taking some sort of action, okay? It might sound like that, but it's not what I'm trying to do. All I'm saying is that the breakdown happens before the breakthrough. So if we are moving from this Capricornian age into this golden age of Aquarius, before we get to the golden part, we've got to go through the breakdown part. And if we don't know that, if we don't have our energy together for that, right? If we don't soldier on through the breakdown, we're not going to get to the breakthrough. We're not going to get to the breakthrough because the planets are in a particular alignment. Yes, the alignments of the planets might help us to get through the breakdown, but we've got one of two choices. We're in the breakdown and we choose to align with our limitless spirit and create what we would love to create. We stop giving our power to external circumstances. We create the lives that we would love for ourselves individually. And what we do then is we connect to the collective. We start helping to create that for the collective. And so some people have a breakdown and they do the work, whatever that work is, through the breakdown. And on the other side of the breakdown is the breakthrough. But you know what? For many people, we get into the breakdown and then we go, oh my God, it's the breakdown. And we sit on the fence and we don't make any decisions and we don't move forward, or we keep on doing what we've always done that just gets us what we've always got. And the breakdown leads to further breakdown, which leads to further breakdown, which ultimately leads to death. Now, this can be death of a dream. It can be death of your enthusiasm. It can be the death of your joy, or it can be the physical death of your body. And yes, we're all going to die. So, you know, I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that's what happens. So you either have breakdown that ends up in death, or you have breakdown that ends up in breakthrough. But you can't get to the breakthrough unless you take the action. And in my opinion, you can't get to the breakthrough unless you take the action that's in alignment with your limitless spirit. So, mystics talk about the dark night of the soul. And you know what? I've always heard about the dark night of the soul. And quite frankly, I've had my own dark night of the soul experience. And I've realized you don't only have one, all right? And dark night of the soul experiences essentially are you feel lost, you feel lonely, and nothing that used to work works. You feel like you've been sucked under by a massive fucking wave. The rip is taking you out to sea, and basically you're alone, and you actually don't know if you're going to survive. That's what a true dark night of the soul feels like. And the reason why that happens is because our coping strategies don't serve us any longer. And each one of us goes through a dark night of the soul experience. Sometimes it's precipitated by an accident. Sometimes it's precipitated by an illness. Sometimes it's precipitated what is perceived to be a betrayal by someone. Sometimes it's precipitated by the loss of something, a business, a friendship, a relationship, a loved one to death. We all go through those experiences, right? Where things just don't make sense anymore. But when we get to a certain age in our lives, when we get to that like mid-age kind of age, anywhere between 38 and about 42 to 45, when shit happens when we're younger, we use our coping strategies and we tend to get over it. But something seems to happen here in the mid-age where our coping strategies no longer serve us. And what I think happens for most people is we just give up. We give up and we start that slow, inexorable slide towards death. And I don't think that is necessary. So the point I'm trying to make about dark nights of the soul is that there are some mystics that are saying that collectively, the world, humanity, we are going through our dark night of the soul experience. Now, on the other side of the dark night of the soul experience lies awareness and liberation. But you can get sucked into and lost in that dark night of the soul experience. And then it leads itself to more breakdown. And ultimately, to death, the death of your joy. So I would like that not to happen to me and to you. So I have a few ideas on what you can do when you're there and how you can get through this fence sitting thing and the benefits of getting off the fence. So you know that one of the premises that I live my life by is that our focus creates our reality, okay? And so no matter what I find really comforting about that is that no matter how bad I feel, no matter how negative I am, and no matter how much shit's happening around me, I know that I'm a powerful creator and that my attitude doesn't determine what I create. My focus determines what I create. And I find that really liberating because suddenly I don't have to pretend to be okay when I'm not okay. I can give myself the freedom and the comfort of just saying, I'm not okay. I'm actually not okay. I don't know how long it's going to last. It doesn't mean that I think I'm not going to be okay forever. But for right now, I am not okay. So there are two streams of consciousness that are always creating. So hang on, let me just go back. You create your reality through your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind, the first place that you can see that is in your physical body. Your subconscious mind controls your autonomic nervous system. And your autonomic nervous system has got two branches. Your sympathetic, parasympathetic. When the sympathetic controls things like alertness, like being on time, getting shit done, right? And your parasympathetic controls things like resting and restoring. So when your sympathetic is overactive, too triggered, that's when you get the fight, flight, fawn, or freeze reaction. And when your parasympathetic is too triggered, then you over-digest, you overeat. You slow down, you become sluggish, you become too relaxed, you take no action, all right? So neither of them are good or bad. They are both, just like pain and pleasure, they work together. And we want a balanced functioning of our autonomic nervous system because your autonomic nervous system controls your endocrine system, that's all your hormones, your neurotransmitters, your digestion, your immune system. It's all regulated via your autonomic nervous system. So your subconscious creates the reality. And the first place you see that is in your body. And that's why I bang on so much about your body is constantly showing you what the actual fuck is going on in your unconscious. You just need to know how to interpret it. So there are two streams of consciousness always creating. The one is from your ego reality. And it's limited. It's limited by what you know. It's limited by what you believe is possible. It's limited by what you believe about yourself. And the second one is from your superconscious reality. That's your limitless soul or your heart, however you want to think of it. And that is not bound by any limits. That's the part of you that exists throughout time and space. That's the wise, all-knowing part of you. And those two streams of consciousness are always creating. And they're always giving your subconscious messages about what you're wanting to create. Now, your subconscious doesn't distinguish between whether the message is coming from your ego reality, your limitation, or your limitless self. It just knows that whoever's sending the loudest message, it's going to carry out that command. So your focus determines what your subconscious is going to create. And it's not anywhere, it's no more obvious than in your physical body. And by your physical body, I mean your thoughts, your feelings, and how your physiology responds, okay? So what is true in how you create for your physical body is then true in how you create the world around you. So if you want to live according to your limitless reality, you need to shift your focus onto that part of your stream of consciousness. And here's the great news. You don't have to get an A for this. You don't have to have 80% of your focus there. You only have to have 51% of your focus there. So you're not going to chuck your ego out. You are taking your ego along for the ride, because there's nothing wrong with your ego. It's trying to keep you safe. It's a coping strategy to keep you safe. Your ego gets you out of bed in the morning and lets you get shit done. You need it. You want to embrace it. The only thing is, you don't want it running the show. You don't want it driving the car of your life. You want your limitless soul to drive the car of your life. Because here's another truth. We all have a heart. We all have a longing in our heart. We all have things that we love. We all have things that we would love to create and that we would love to express. And when you're creating, and the problem is that our hearts get hurt. And so our default setting is to protect our hearts. And when we protect our hearts, we can't follow them, right? Because we're trying to keep them safe. Because we're so scared that when we follow them, we're going to get hurt. So the paradox is that you have a heart that's longing to express, but that's also the part of you that gets hurt by life's traumas. And so you guard it and you protect it, which means you can't follow its longings because you're too scared to follow its longings. And so fear stops us from actually following our hearts. Fear stops us from living according to our limitless self. Now, your thoughts and your feelings, they're the way your ego communicates, and they're actually not real. Your thoughts and your feelings are the assumptions that you make at any given time about the situation you're in. And those assumptions are only based on what you know, on what you know cognitively, what you've experienced. And so the problem with that is that they are not the reflections of the actual reality or all the infinite possibilities. And that's the problem with creating from your ego. You can only create what you've created before. It looks different, it smells different, and it seems different for a little while until you realize, oh, fuck, it's the same thing. So, it's like relationships. You have a relationship and you have it with this person and it ends up on the rocks, and you go, okay, now the next person you pick is completely different. And then you end up having the relationship and it ends up on the rocks because at some point you realize, oh my God, this person is actually very much the same as the original one. So let me give you a better example. Let's say that you're a woman. I'm just going to use this, please. I'm going to be cisgendered, okay? You're a woman, you have a relationship with a man, and he physically and emotionally abuses you. And so you put up with this for a while and you get your shit together and you get out. So now you have a relationship, you heal and you get over it, and you have a relationship with someone else. And the next person you have a relationship with is nothing like that first person, is not that, whatever you call that narcissistic, controlling kind of person. This new person is gentle and really cares about your welfare and wants to be with you all the time and really hangs on to your every word, and then doesn't want to do anything without you and doesn't want you to do anything without them. And now the control, instead of it being verbal and physical abuse, the control now becomes well, why don't you want to be with me? But I thought you loved me, but I just want to spend all my time with you. It's a more passive version of control. So you get out of that relationship, and then you get together with someone else, and this person is incredibly wealthy, materially wealthy. And so what happens is you have a relationship with this person, and this person wants to take care of you. And so it convinces you that it's a good idea for you, let's just say, give up your job, you give up your independence. And then what they do is they control you with the money. So it looks like three different people, but it's control in the one relationship, mental and physical abuse. It's control in the other relationship, emotional manipulation, and it's control in the third relationship, money. So it's still control. Three different people, three different relationships, same pattern. That's what I mean by the same pattern being repeated over and over and over. So focus creates your reality, not your attitude. And so your focus is what you put what are your experiences determined where you put your attention, okay? Where you put your attention. When you focus on end results, when you focus on what you'd love to create, you attract those end results. When you focus on how, okay, and what you need to do in order to get the end results, when that's your focus, well, then you just get more of what you've already creating. What actually happens is when you're focusing on how, because you don't know how, you get doubt and you get negative beliefs and you have fear, and that then paralyzes you, and then you end up being back on the fence, and then you can't actually take the step forward. So another principle is that it takes will. It takes will to shift your focus from your ego limitation to your limitless soul, what your limitless soul is longing to express. And so what we do is we use our willpower in the method. So, like let's say you go on a diet, whether that's to change your health or change your weight, you use your willpower to stick to the diet rather than using your will to access what is true for you via your ego, what is true, what is your heart longing to express, and shifting your focus. And your will is paramount to actually creating what you would love. And your will is this center here in your throat center. It's governed by your throat chakra. So remember when I said right in the beginning, you have a head and heart conflict. Your head says one thing, your heart says something else. Today we're going with the head, then we're going with the heart, then we're going with the head, then we're going with the heart. The will gets completely depleted. And so the more we deplete our will forces, the less likely we are to be able to shift our focus. And so the fear, all right, hold on, let me just see what I wrote here, okay? So your highest source of energy is your spirit or your heart, okay? But you are conditioned to protect your heart, and that's motivated by fear. I said that earlier, right? And the fear is communicated to you through your thoughts and your feelings. So nothing changes until you use your will to consistently choose what you'd love to create and then take an action that's in alignment with that. And the next principle, I suppose I should have said there are 5 principles I was going to talk about. The 5th one is that your energy comes from a higher source. Now, you can believe this comes from the universe. You can believe this comes from God. You could be a complete atheist and go, that sounds like a lot of bullshit. But the truth is, energy cannot be created or destroyed, and you have access to energy. And if you are limiting the energy to your own physical reality, then you are limited to keeping your focus on your ego. But your energy comes from a universal source. And so think of it this way. I think Carolyn Mace put it this way. She said, imagine that every day God, or whatever you believe God to be, sends you 100 circuits of energy. And those 100 circuits are to power your current reality. But every time you have an issue, you have a betrayal that you haven't dealt with, a trauma you haven't dealt with, a limiting belief that you haven't identified, it automatically sucks out a couple of those circuits of energy. So what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to have 100 circuits, use 50 maybe to power your day, save 30, and have 20 in an easy access account. Imagine it's money, so that if the shit hits the fan, you can quickly draw on that. And you're supposed to build up an energy bank account. You're supposed to build up an energy reserve. So when the shit really hits the fan, then you have an energy reserve. But most of us, we have 100 circuits coming in, and we've got so much unprocessed shit that we use all 100 every day. So we've got nothing in the bank account. Basically, we're running on our overdraft. And then when shit gets really real, we have a crisis. Now, that's usually when people come to me by the time they're in the crisis. And that's fine, because if it wasn't for that, then I wouldn't have a business. I get that. Okay, I wouldn't have been able to have a career for the last 27 years. But the fact is that when we know these principles and we choose to get the fuck off the fence, okay, and actually start taking action to create what we love, then we can actually not avoid the crises, but we can build up a resilience so that when the crises happen, we can weather them more effectively. And it doesn't have to be a complete breakdown. So if you are frustrated by doing what you've always done and getting the same results, if you're frustrated by having the same relationship with the same person every time you think it's a new person, but it's not happening. If you're frustrated because you can't have the relationship that you'd love. If you're frustrated because, you keep on creating the same signs and symptoms, or, you develop one set of signs and symptoms, you take some medication, it suppresses those symptoms and you develop something else. So if you've got a chronic illness and you want to create vibrant health, if you have been robbed of your joy, if you are looking for more purpose in your life, if you're looking for being able to live according to your limitless spirit rather than being sucked into only creating from your limited ego, if you want to increase your energy, if you want to learn how to build your emotional resilience, if you want to fill up the reserve in your energy tank, then I would love to help you, because I don't have all the answers, I don't have all the answers. And I'm not some sort of magic guru. No, not that at all. Okay. And I have clients who have crises and who struggle, and it's not my job to fix anyone. But I do know that every single one of us is a powerful creator. No matter what our talents, no matter what our gifts, no matter what our traumas, we are all powerful creators. And we all have the ability to transcend our fears, our thoughts and our beliefs, and live in alignment with our limitless spirits. And that doesn't result in a life that's easy or always happy. But what it does do is it results in a life that is fulfilled. And maybe that's the true purpose of life. So if you are ready to get off the fence, if you want to have high vitality, if you want to learn how to operate in the creative orientation, then I would invite you to potentially consider working with me. I have 3 one-to-one coaching slots that are opening up next week. So I would love 3 new clients. Of course I would. I'm also going to put together that training for next month where you can pay what you can afford. I'm going to tell you what I think it's worth, not because I want you to pay that. You're going to pay me whatever you can afford. What that training will do is it will provide you with a foundation. And it's a starting point for sure. And I want everyone to have access to that. So I'm going to tell you more about that. And I'm going to sort out the marketing on that. I just have to, my hesitation is I was going to just do it in 2 4-hour blocks, but actually I think I'm going to break it up into some separate weeks, but I haven't done that yet. I'm going to go and check in with my heart on how exactly I want to do that. So, I put a post up yesterday on how you can work with me. One-to-one is, what a lot of people do. Whole body reset. I'm just finishing up my current whole body reset and it's been so amazing. I can't wait to do it again. So I might actually do it sooner rather than later. And then my new program, which is called The Healer Is You. So you have a lot of options, right? And each of those options have different price points. If you're not sure, and if all you're looking for is clarity on whether you're ready to get off the fence or not, and if you want to get off the fence, who is best for you, who's best to help you, I would love to help you get that clarity. So if you are interested in working with me, or if you're interested in getting that clarity, type power in the comments. I will reach out to you. We'll set up a free call to discuss what you want. There's no pressure. I don't try and sell you into it. I don't want to frighten you into doing anything you don't want to do. I want you to step into the powerful being that I know that you are. And so I will help you get some clarity on how it is you want to move forward. And hopefully 3 of you will choose to move forward with me in July. I would be very happy if that was the case. Thank you so much for watching more Shit Loretta Knows. If you are watching live, please type live. If you're watching the replay, please type replay. And I will see you next week for more Shit Loretta Knows.